All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sofa Safari. It's a little bit more chilly this morning than the last few drives that we've done, hence my hands are in my pocket and the heat has been on. Don't tell Brit. But she's in there quite comfy with a blankie and a beanie and scarf on. She looks quite chuffed this morning. This morning we're joined by a couple or a few very special guests. We've got the Bushburgers behind us. And a lot of you will know Shara from our blog. She writes a lot of pieces for Tula, and she is our content manager. So she is mine, Brit's boss. Would you not believe it? So it's a little bit stressful for me today on the back of the vehicle. But hopefully Shara behaves nicely and doesn't shout at me or anything like that. But Brit's going to pan to her now and her two beautiful girls. She's going to introduce them all to you. Hello, girls.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
So yeah, pleasure to have Shara. She's finally able to join us for a drive and to come out and see how we do these things. Of course, she's been working on the other side of Facebook and the website and all of that. So it's a pleasure to have her. And I think I'm going to try get them to do some crazy or weird and wacky things today. I'm trying to find some elephant dung, so we'll see if that comes right. It has to be fresh elephant dung though, guys. So we'll see if I can find that. But otherwise, what I'm going to do this morning is drive a little bit towards the south. We're going to go check out a beautiful area called Jackals Flame. It's a nice big Sodex site, and maybe I'll explain a little bit more about Sodex sites while we're there. And then we're going to come back up around the east and towards the north, past Mashutten Dam, which you all should know perfectly by now. And hopefully we can find, I don't know, just some new territory to show you guys, maybe some elephants this morning, since I feel like I haven't seen nearly enough elephants this winter. So I'd like to spend a lot of time with them. But of course, if a little cat pops out or maybe some dogs, we'll definitely get you guys there. So stick around, let's see what we find, and see you out there. Right, ladies and gents, the reason why I've stopped here this morning is to talk about something that I don't know if the Pink Prawn's spoken about it yet or anything to do with geology really. I know that I haven't, so I thought I'd stop and talk to you a little bit about that. Now, I'm not going to sit here or stand here rather, and claim to be a geological expert, but as a guide, we do know a few things about the geology in this area. And for any of you that might be a little bit more into geology and might know a thing or two further, please feel free to chime in the comments. If we can all learn from each other, that's fantastic. But the reason why I've stopped here is because so often I'll be driving through this little area with guests from all over the world. And as we drive through this area, a lot of people, and I mean a lot, say, why is the ground wet here? Did it rain here or something like that? And it's always quite funny to me because, in actual fact, the entirety of this area, of this part of the Greater Kruger National Park, is a very granite-based rock type. So it gives off a very light soil when it breaks down. Very light in color, full of mica, which is a very reflective substance, and also full of quartz, which is another very reflective substance. We all know quartz. But every once in a while, you'll drive through what I like to refer to as a gabbro lick. So if you can imagine, I'll put my two little rocks down there. And by the way, this big rock here is a gabbro rock, so it's incredibly heavy. But if you can imagine the Greater Kruger, and I'm just going to show you with my hand, if you can imagine my hand as the Greater Kruger National Park, with all of that being mostly a granite-based soil type, because the granite's coming off the top of the Drakensberg Mountains, which I hope to show you at another point when we can actually see them. But we do have the beautiful mountains in our western, or towards our west, this way. But most of this area is a granite-based soil. And then throughout that area, you get what you call gabbro fingers or gabbro licks running through the granite. Right, and they're slowly coming towards the surface. And it's quite an interesting rock. It's quite heavy, it's very dark, and you can see the difference between a piece of granite on the left, very light, full of quartz, lots of light, nice shiny things, and a piece of gabbro on the right, very dark and very heavy. And I'm going to ask the girls back here if they wouldn't mind telling me just how heavy the differences are. So feel that one first. Tell the camera that I'm not lying, basically. And now feel that one. Big difference, hey?
Yeah.
All right, so you have gabbro rock and then you have granite rock. And the name of gabbro rock is called intrusive, or the type of gabbro rock is intrusive igneous rock. And the reason why we call it intrusive is because it's actually magma that is hardened and settled underground millions of years ago. So it was an intrusion of magma. However, throughout the ages and as weathering and erosion has taken place, obviously rain, wind, those sort of things, these giant rocks have started to come towards the surface as the rest of the earth gets eaten away around them. And it is a very tough rock, so you can imagine how everything else gets eaten around it and you're left with these big boulders. But as I say, it is a major pain for us to try and smooth these roads out. You kind of just have to deal with it. And unfortunately, we recently got Land Cruisers. We had to let go of our Land Rovers, so we're not very chuffed because cruisers are a little bit tough on the bouncy roads. But we'll live with it.
I think it's sweet.
Right, so the reason why I've stopped here is I know it looks like I'm standing in a field of grass at the moment, and essentially I am, because even the stuff that isn't grass is actually grass. So you may have remembered a few weeks ago, myself and Chad did a drive together where we decided to talk about a rhino for the first time ever, and to actually show you guys one on camera. Now, what I wanted to do is just show you a few of the different signs of rhinos, just because they are quite interesting and they are lovely animals. Please bear in mind that we will never show rhinos again on this on Sofa Safari. But this is a very old midden from a rhino, and what that means is this is a particular bull that keeps coming around you. And so as you can see throughout the grass, I can pick up little chunks of dung like this, and if I break it open, you can see it's just full of grass. All right, so basically just gone straight through his digestive system, been chewed up once or twice, and then comes out as basically a blade of grass. So yeah, very similar digestive system to elephants, in other words, very inefficient. And I think only about 20 to 40% of what they eat is assimilated by the actual animal and then utilized. But yeah, this is what they'll do. They come to what we call a midden, and you can see over here, there's a bit of a crater in the ground. This is where this particular gentleman will come, and he'll defecate, and then he puts his feet through it, and he digs it out, and he gets the smell all over his feet, so that wherever he walks, he kind of traces his own smell with him down the road here. So yeah, it's been a long time since he's come around. So hopefully he'll be coming around soon. They usually come around every couple of months, maybe every few weeks. It just depends how big his territory is, and they'll deposit dung in these beautiful little latrines that they have. And by doing this, this will help females that cross through the area to know if they will, to figure out if they actually want to stay, because either this man smell or this guy smells good, or he doesn't smell good and they want to leave. It might also help the younger bulls in the area figure out that they need to watch their backs and not misbehave, because they are in a much bigger bull's territory. And it might also help an imposter bull to figure out if it's worth looking for this gentleman to fight him, or to rather back off because he just smells a bit too potent. So yeah, nice big rhino midden, and lots of animals have lots of different ways of leaving scents and marks and things like that. And if you're looking for a little bit more information on that, maybe go check out one of my last blog posts, one of my last Safari Science. Too much alliteration. But yeah, if you go look at one of my last articles, I wrote about how animals communicate, and there was a little bit on rhinos there. So yeah, feel free to go and read that and ask your questions away in the comments. Let's carry on. Right, folks, we have arrived at what we call Jackals Flame, which is basically a giant sodic site, or a floodplain. You can see how beautifully open it is, and also how sandy it is. And if you remember from a couple of episodes ago, a few episodes ago now, I did talk to you a little bit about a sodic site. Chad's also done it in his solo safaris. But essentially the reason why you don't see too many trees and grasses growing here, except for there, because there's a bit of a drainage line that runs through here where water actually runs. But the reason why you don't see too many things growing here is because there's just an incredible accumulation of minerals and nutrients and so on. And too much of a good thing is actually a bad thing. So these areas become very alkaline in nature, and that means that a lot of plant species can't really get a footing here. The soil type is just not good enough, and that's the same for grass. So with these particular areas, we have to be very careful of erosion and just the damage that we do when we off-road. So in actual fact, we're not permitted to off-road on areas like this. And slowly but surely, we are trying to change our ways and moving roads off of these areas. You know, historical roads have been here for 50, 60 years. But we are trying to find ways of bringing roads back around areas like this instead of cutting through them. And yeah, it's just a fascinating area, you know, because of that alkaline buildup, those minerals and those salts. Animals will legitimately come here and actually lick the ground. So, you know, when you go to the zoo and you see that giant white brick that they put in there, basically called a salt lick, we all know about those. This is nature's salt lick. And the reason why this accumulation happens is, if you have to look behind me there, you'll see there's a lot of big trees, and that would indicate that we're getting closer to a riverbed. And back over this way, it's actually coming off of a ridge, so or a bit of an elevation. So whenever we get rainfall, it all slowly flows down this way, and we get a lot of rainfall. It quickly runs down this way, and it leaches all the nutrients coming out of those trees and that soil up there and brings them all down here and places them here. In particularly, rainy years or wet years, these areas are supposed to absorb the floods that would be coming through the river system over there. So I've never seen it in this area. I don't even think the 2012 floods would have flooded this entire area. Although, Shara, I don't know if you were here 2012. Did you see this area flooded? No. So there, yeah, it can happen. It just takes a lot of water for it to happen. Anyway, guys, what we're going to do is just drive a little bit here. I'm going to show you some of that erosion and how we can combat it and how we can fix it. And then what I want to do is walk everybody down to those big trees down there and show you a hornbill box and maybe explain a little bit about what the hornbill conservation guys do for this area. So yeah, stick around. Let's get a bit closer. We're off the vehicle and we're going to take a little bit of a walk in that direction there. Just have a look at a tree. And that's where one of the hornbill boxes is. But we're actually standing on the flay now, or on the Sodic site. And as we walk, you'll notice that there's quite a bit of erosion. We actually had a very bad gully open up here during our last bit of rain. And that was, I think over like 2-3 days, we got 163 millimeters of rain. So for our American friends, I don't know what that is in inches. What would it be? Like 8 inches, 8-9 inches of rain over 2 days. Which for this part of the world is just an astronomical amount of rain, and it really did open up a lot of erosion gullies, and that's made us deviate this road or divert this road around the area. And soon we will be coming in to try and combat this erosion, because it is in actual fact human-made erosion because of the road, making it easier for water to flow. So whenever you are in game reserves or whenever you're trying to develop a game reserve, you have to be very mindful about the conservation aspect and how you're going about doing these sort of things. So if you have a look just behind me here, you'll see there's a lot of logs lying around. These logs didn't just wash up here because of a flood one year. They were actually put here by our teams. And the point of these logs is to actually hold down what we call brush packing. So we'll go and chop down invasive trees, not alien trees, just trees that are plentiful, get their branches. We lay it flat on the sand here, and we put these gum poles on top of that to hold it down. This way, what happens is when it rains, the grass actually has a little bit, or the grass that's already growing, has a little bit of cover. It also has cover from the hungry mouths of animals. And it just gives things a bit of a footing to start growing again. And you can see how successful the brush packing has been coming down this way. Nice big tuft of grass over here where the brush packing was initially set up. So what we'll be doing on that side there where there's bad erosion is probably doing a little bit of brush packing. But in actual fact, what we'll need to do is basically put up a silt screen, which is 2 poles that we drive into the ground, and we put what we call biojute between that. It's like a permeable white material that you put from pole to pole, and you put it in the ground about 1 foot deep and sticking out about 1 foot high. And what happens is as the rain runs down, or the rainwater runs down, it brings sediment with it. And that permeable membrane allows the water to get through while stopping the sediment from getting through. And slowly but surely, you get this bank that starts to build and you start to repair the area. So yeah, we have to do all these sort of things just to make sure that we look after the area that has treated us all so beautifully over the decades and years. So yeah, but what we're going to do is walk up to the tree now. We're going to have a look at that hornbill box. And I think it's the first time that everybody here is seeing one. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, let's go check it out. Over. All right, guys, just stay close, stay in the line, I guess. I don't foresee any problems really. See the big erosion.
I think we should do a sofa safari walk. I think it'll be fun.
You're the one that's been chickening out of it for like 2 months.
Is this the same box that we saw the leopard poking its head in?
Yeah. So there we have it, folks. We've come across our hornbill box, and myself and Chad, and I think even Dale and Foreman have all managed to find southern ground hornbills on our respective game drives. So they are those big birds. I'm sure Britt will cut a bit of beautiful B-roll footage for you all to look at them now. But big birds, black with a little bit of red on the beak, and then beautiful white on the wings. But they are a very endangered bird. And if you remember from one of my previous drives, I think I stated that they've come from being about 300 known birds in South Africa to over 1,300 birds now over the course of about 15 years. So it just shows you how good and how hard the conservation guys behind this project have been working. And the reason why it's working so well is they've come and they've set up these boxes. And it's quite interesting because this is a hornbill and because it's so big, but more particularly because it's a hornbill, they need holes to nest in trees. So the things like the yellow-billed hornbill and the red-billed hornbill and even the grey hornbills and so on, they find it quite easy to find a hole in a tree. I mean, they are just tiny little birds, you know, they can squeeze into all sorts of small holes, whereas a giant or ground hornbill cannot just get into any hole. And unfortunately, because of the action of human beings cutting down a lot of the big prominent trees for wood and for timber and things like that, and also because of elephants pushing over a lot of the trees, you now have a situation where a lot of these ground hornbills can't find natural places to nest anymore. It's quite funny though, because if I look behind me here, there's a big fig tree just behind me. It's kind of like weird greenish yellow tree, and that's got a giant cavity going right down the center of its one stem or its one branch here. And that would probably be a pretty good place for hornbills to nest if it wasn't so open to the top where it could get flooded. But it's that sort of hole that they would be looking for, and those are in quite short supply. So what the conservation guys did is they thought, well, cool, if we can give these birds a place to nest, then maybe they will, you know, utilize that and we can help them, you know, spur on their reproduction. Because if they can't find a place to nest, they just simply don't reproduce that year. So it's quite strange. They're quite a weird bird. But on top of that, you'll usually lay 2 eggs, and essentially what happens is the first egg that hatches, the first chick to hatch, will get all the attention of mom and dad, all the feeding, all the taking care of. And the second chick to hatch is usually just discarded. The parents don't really give any attention to it or feed it or anything. And so it'll unfortunately starve or probably get eaten by its sibling. So what these boxes allow the guys to do is the hornbills have started using them. They now lay their eggs, and the guys will then come and check them once they know that they're active. And as soon as that first chick has hatched, the guys will come and collect the second chick as it hatches so that they can take it to a rehabilitation center. They can feed it themselves. They can rear it themselves with a little flock of captive ground hornbills. And in doing so, in doing it that way, in other words, that animal husbandry where you allow them to be raised with their own kind, they start to, or they come out quite rehabilitated at the end. And in that way, they've been able to re-release a huge amount of birds back into the wilderness, which is just a great project. As I said, going from 300 to 1,300 birds now in South Africa alone. So well done, guys, to all the people involved in that. And I think at the bottom of this video, we'll post a little link to the guys that are responsible for this. And you can go check out their website and their Instagram and all of that. And if you'd like to help with a project like this, I'm sure they'll have various means and ways for you to do that. So yeah, but great to see. Unfortunately, as we were walking up, Shara was asking me now if this was the box where they actually caught a leopard. They actually got it on camera. Because leopards are very clever creatures and they know how to climb trees. This is kind of like a sitting duck for leopards, unfortunately. But I don't think this is the exact box where they caught it on that camera trap with the leopard poking his head in and the hornbill trying to peck at the leopard. It was all quite funny. You can probably find it on YouTube. But unfortunately, I have been here with guests in the past, and upon inspection, we did find a bunch of feathers all around. And unfortunately, a leopard that we saw 2 episodes ago, Tombela, her cub, we believe, had got into this box here and had eaten one of the chicks. So that was a little bit heartbreaking, particularly for the guys that are responsible for this. It does happen, unfortunately. These leopards are pesky little cats sometimes. You just got to watch your back all the time. But yeah, nice to see.
Cold.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's fine. It makes you tastier.
Oh, I'm not participating.
All right.
Okay, let's see, what is he doing?
Right, girls. You can tell me how much water an elephant drinks a day. And I'm going to assume that this is quite a big male elephant that came through here, just because that is quite the caliber that's come out, you know, in comparison to my little 2.2 rifle. Yeah, quite a cannon. So how much water? I'm sure you guys have learned this before, either in school or on a ganja. Not in gallons, in liters.
So a milk bottle is
Yeah.
like 1 liter.
Yeah,
How many liters do you think he drinks a day?
a big 6.5 ton elephant bull.
I don't know. I don't know. I was 1,000 to 100. I don't know.
100? 100 is pretty close.
I said 120 liters a
Yeah.
day.
160.
160. So you're all pretty close. It's sort of like 100, 150, 120 is what they'll write, like several textbooks. And so.
I read the book,
But
right.
yeah, I've never seen a man that actually went there and kind of measured how much wee was coming out of an elephant to see how much it was drinking. But yeah, you can check inside here. He's been eating a little bit of mapani, nice bit of a leaf there. That's half of a mapani leaf.
Cool.
Yeah. For those of you watching, you remember mapani is the Ndebele word for a butterfly. So there's usually another half to this leaf that makes it look like a butterfly. But yeah, and then he's been eating all sorts of things. But the reason why I'm asking how much water he drinks, I mean, there's like a nice little berry there or something, is because you can, essentially, if you are stuck in Africa and you're thirsty, right, and you haven't found anything to drink because it's a very dry place, believe me, elephants always find something to drink. Right? So if you are stuck and you're in a bit of a pickle, what you can do is you can find a big elephant ball of dung like this, and you just open your mouth and you just squeeze that water into your mouth. Tastes delicious. Looks like chocolate milk. Doesn't taste like it. Tastes better.
Oh.
Do you want to try?
No.
Wow, I can't understand why. So, yeah, but if you carry on pulling it apart, let me not get elephant dung all over Dale's rifle. Don't worry about it, Dale. But yeah, if you have a look, you can see these elephants have been eating twigs and leaves, and I don't think that was actually part of the dung. And there's lots of grass in there and roots and all sorts of things. So elephants are, now that I've kind of squeezed it all together, it's a bit tricky to see. There's more mapani. There's the other side of that leaf.
It's quite interesting because there's not that much mapani right here.
Yeah,
right?
so he's traveled quite a way,
Really cool.
away, yeah. But it's interesting because they say that elephants can defecate basically every hour. So I'm sure you've all seen it before. When elephants are feeding, they'll be pooping at the same time that they're feeding. It's just basically this giant eating machine. And the whole animal is adapted for feeding. The tusks, the trunk, the teeth, even the forehead is adapted so it can push trees. So yeah, they are just a 100% eating machine. And who can tell me how much this bull elephant would eat a day? So if he's drinking 120, yeah, kilograms, yeah, not pounds. Remember, we're in South Africa.
No, no.
How many kilograms of food do you think he eats a day? Kiki, what do you think?
They'll all back away.
do they eat more than they drink or less than they drink?
They eat more.
300?
300 kgs a day. That's not a bad guess for a big elephant bull. 300 kilograms a day. This maybe be a bit more modest, like 260 up to 300, because 300 is a huge.
Of leaves and
grass and branches
Do you know how much
and
that
bark.
is? Think how much a little handful of grass
Yeah.
weighs. Nothing. He has to eat like 250 kilograms.
Yeah,
That's
It's
a
a lot of
lot,
food,
right?
eh?
In
Yeah.
a day.
yeah. And I thought I was a macho man for eating like a kilogram steak once upon a time. Can't do that anymore. Anyway.
No more.
Yeah.
Mr. Vegetarian.
Anyway, but yeah, would anyone like to squeeze some more elephant dung? It's a great experience, guys. You want to taste it? I'm serious. It's nice.
Why don't you taste it? Oh, okay, so drink it.
If I do it, you have to do it.
No.
I'll make a deal. Show you want to do it.
No.
Brett?
I have to kiss that mouth.
Any of the viewers? There you go. Some elephant dung water for you. Fresh and refreshing, guys.
Is it really?
Tasty.
Lick his fingers.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gents, let's go back to the vehicle and see if we can actually find some animals this morning. Right, so because I've taken you all on geological journeys and zodiac site missions and bird boxes and so on, I thought we'd stop for whatever animals we come across from here on out. So at the moment we're looking at some beautiful kudus. There's another one coming from the right hand side into frame shortly. But yeah, it looks like there's a lot of babies here. In fact, I'm seeing in total 3 or 4 full grown females and then maybe 3 little babies there. And Shame's quite cute. You can just see the ears of the one sticking up over the top of that bush there. Almost makes it look like a little steenbok, which is a very small antelope we get out here. But kudu are one of the more lovely antelope species we find in this area, and their numbers have been going up quite dramatically over the last few years, so they're doing really well. They're very peaceful, and you often find them in these kind of going towards the riverine areas. They're quite like that, and the reason for that is because they're what we call mixed feeders, so they'll feed on grass occasionally as well as leaves and seed pods and maybe fruits here and there, but primarily they'll be feeding on or they'll be browsing as opposed to grazing primarily. But yeah, if you have a look at them, they've got those white stripes that run down their sides. That's called disruptive camouflage or disruptive markings. And the idea behind that is just to basically mimic strands of grass and branches and so on sticking up. And that just helps break their line out a little bit more from their environment, or blend them into their environment a bit more. So yeah, it does work. They also have a very neutral coat. I don't know if you can see it with the camera, but very sort of light brown, almost going into grey. And I like to think of it very similar to kind of like elephants' coloration at times. And for those of you that don't know, you know, elephants might be this huge, massive animal, but you really can drive past them at the best of times. They kind of blend into the environment perfectly, and kudu are kind of similar. And as we're talking now, as you know, if you recall a bit earlier, I was saying there was another female coming out on the right-hand side. I could only see her at that time, but in fact there were 2 females coming out, 3 females coming out of that area. So yeah, it just shows you they really do blend in and they can keep very still. I think their main claim to fame is kind of jumping. If you have a look, they've got the kind of big ridge on their shoulders, on the top of their back there. And that houses big muscles and big joints, and that allows them to springboard quite quickly, and they can jump, I believe, something like 2 or 3 meters high from a standing start. And it reminds me of quite a good little clip that came out a few years ago of a gentleman living, I think, in Pretoria, South Africa. And he kept coming home and his garden would have been flattened, all his beautiful flowers that he's planted, all his nice trees, and he just couldn't understand. He planted, I think, 3 or 4 times until eventually he decided to put up a CCTV camera. And day one, as that camera goes live, he leaves the house, he's replanted his garden, and a nice big kudu bull just bounces over his kind of 2.5 meter high fence, palisade fence, boom, over the top, and just starts eating all of his garden. And when he was done, just bounced straight back over the wall and carried on. I mean, this is a big animal. I mean, a kudu bull can weigh, I think, in the region of about 190 to 220 kilograms. So for them to be able to jump over a 6.5 or 7 foot fence or wall is a pretty magnificent feat. But yeah, they're just starting to move off now, so we're going to carry on for the morning. I still want to try and find some elephants, and I still want to have a look at Mashatan Dam. So let's carry on. So some of you may have heard that saying before. I don't know if it's a South African saying, but the saying is, sometimes I sits and thinks, and sometimes I just sits. And if you have a look at what Brit's got in her camera right now, the nice baboon just sitting enjoying the view. And I don't know if he's thinking too much, but he's definitely sitting. He's just grooming himself, trying to take ticks and mites off and whatever. But a little bit over to the right-hand side here is a couple of very big trees. They're big sycamore figs. And a couple of weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago now, Chad actually stopped here to talk about these trees. So he filled you on the fig hospital. It's just some baboons making a noise now, so keep quiet. But he did stop and talk to you about the figs and the fig wasps and those sort of things. But often, well, not so often recently, but over the years we found baboons in these trees many times, to the point where we actually started referring to it as Baboon Hotel. So it's nice to see that they are starting to come back to utilize this tree, because it really has probably been well over a year now that I've seen baboons here. So I think they're all down here in the riverbed, probably feeding on the last figs of the season that have fallen down, and you can hear some rustling through the leaves down there, and then they're calling. So yeah, always fun to spend a bit of time with baboons. They are incredibly naughty, and being in the lodging industry, you have to be quite careful of them, because they do tend to try and get what you have, and you can't blame them. We have very nice things, and they would like to eat those very nice things. So we have to be careful and make sure the doors are locked and latched and so on. Otherwise, they will get in. In fact, Chad Cocking had one break into his house last week, which was not a great thing for him to come back from leave to. But we got through it. He got through it. You know, it was a team effort to clean up, but the baboon literally wrecked his house, so we do have to be careful of them. But when you see them out here in nature, doing what they should be doing, they're a wonderful animal to spend time with. And if you spend enough time with a troop of baboons, you'll slowly start to see every member of your family coming out of that troop. You know, your uncles, your aunties, your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, probably your siblings more so than anyone. But yeah. Anyway, let's leave them here for the morning. Let's go see what else we can find. So we had a couple of questions coming from the burgers at the back, and little Jemima was asking how baby elephants, when do they start eating solids? And for a large portion of their early life, sort of the first 4 to 6 months, they will almost be exclusively drinking mom's milk. But they will also on occasion eat mom's dung, which is quite interesting. It's a process called coprophagy. It's not the only animal that does it. A lot of herbivores do it, and other types of animals. And the reason why they do that is to try and get mom's half-digested food through their gut, because it's a bit easier for their stomach to then digest further, and then also to get the bacteria that mom's gut is reliant on. Just turn down the radio waves. To try and get the bacteria from mom, to help their own digestive systems adapt for what their life has in store for them. And then also to actually consume that bacteria as a source of protein early on in life to help them grow a bit quicker. So I found this nice little scene that we just drove past, and this is what mom's ball of dung looks like. Nice sized cow, could be a young bull, might be a young bull from the herd, but that's generally what mom's dung ball will look like. And then this is what little baby's dung ball will look like. So yeah, just a tiny little guy walking around. I'm not going to try and speculate as to the exact age of this elephant, but no more than a few weeks, few months, something like that. So yeah, just a tiny little tot walking with his mom somewhere. So yeah, cute. Who knew that poo could be cute? Jemima, are you happy? You want to hold it? Yeah. There's a ball of elephant dung. It's a baby ball. You got to hold mom's as well, so you can see the difference. Okay, now just lick the baby's one. It's going to taste really nice.
No,
All that tasty bacteria.
These like what are these like bubble kind of things in this? Like that shiny stuff.
So yeah, I mean that's just like mucus, unfortunately, for lack of a better word. That's not a nice thing. But then there you can see like this little guy's been chowing down on some leaves, or maybe that leaf has come through mom's digestive system. So yeah, the more you dig around in elephant dung, the more interesting it becomes. And that's why you often see birds and mongoose and things like that pecking around in elephant dung, because there's still so much nutrients inside there. Remember, they only digest between 20 and 40% of what they eat. So this is still 60 to 80% of what's here is still completely full of nutrition and ready to be eaten by something else. Hence why the baby comes around and eats mom's dung. Yeah. Cute, man. Right, folks, we're back at Tanatula and we are done for the morning. It's been a great morning. It's been quite interesting for me. It's felt like I've had guests again, which has been quite strange, having all the ladies at the back. But it's been fantastic having their questions asked and also learning a thing or two from them. And just, thank you so much for joining me, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bushburgers. There they all are. The pretty girls. Folks, we will see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this morning. Obviously I said we were going to try to find some elephants. We did. I've tried to find elephants everywhere, but, those pesky pachyderms can lay low if they need to. I hope you guys enjoyed the smaller things, the hornbill box, a little bit of conservation. I'm sure in the next episode we can bring you lots of those cats that you all love again. Until next time, have a good day, folks. Bye.